Hi everybody, this is our first lecture of the course, and today we're going to make a brief overview of the main elements of the interface of Cinema 4D. You can see a standard layout of the Cinema 4D on the screen right now. The interface is divided into several areas. Each of those areas contains its functions. You can customize this layout to your liking. You can move around these windows depending on what you're working on. There are a few presets in Cinema 4D we can find in the combo box in the upper right corner, where you can switch between these presets. You can create layouts of your own as well. In this layout, the 3D viewport is the biggest part. It's the window where we can see our 3D scene. Let's press on the cube icon to create a cube. Now let's watch how we can move it in a 3D space. You can do this by holding Alt key and pressing one of the three mouse buttons. The left button is responsible for rotating around the selected point. The middle button is responsible for panning, and the right one for zooming to that point. If we press the middle mouse button anywhere in the viewport, we'll separate the screen into four areas. These windows are called projection windows. They allow viewing the scene from any angle, for example from the top. To expand one of them, full screen, you just need to press the middle button of your mouse anywhere on it. As you may guess, this set of icons allows you to create objects. They are split into categories, and you can create the majority of objects we'll be using. In the top left corner is also a very important set of the instruments for the object's transformation in 3D space. At the moment, the Move tool is chosen. To move an object along the red axis, you just have to hover over it. It's highlighted now. Press and hold the left mouse button and drag. If we want to move an object on a surface, we use one of these corners. When we do so, the axis along which we're able to move our object will be highlighted. If we don't care about moving it along axis, we can just click on the object and drag it. Instruments of rotation and zoom work in the same manner. To the right of the viewport, we can see two more windows. They are Object Manager and Attribute Manager. Object Manager just represents the list of the objects contained in the scene. Let's create a sphere and move it. We can see that with the help of this window, we can select objects, and we also have quick access to some of their basic properties, like its viewport appearance. The Attributes Manager is the most used window in Cinema 4D. It's the Properties window. If we choose Sphere, we can have access to its properties split into different categories. If we choose the Cube, we have access to its properties as well. If we choose Move tool, we'll get access to its detailed properties. Let's go back to Object Manager for a minute, and let's look at these balls near the name of an object. It's an example of a tag. A tag is some additional property or a list of attributes we want to add to our object. This tag is responsible for polygon smoothing in the viewport and on the render. If we want to add some new property, we just need to select our object and choose one of those properties we want to add. For example, let's add a tag display, which is responsible for the object's appearance in the viewport. So we can change every object's appearance in the viewport. The sphere has a wireframe look now. To apply this property to the cube, we can just drag it onto the object. If we want to copy that property, we just need to hold Ctrl, Command on Mac while dragging it. This trick works with almost every object or material inside of Cinema 4D. Let's have a look at another important concept in 3D graphics. It's called parenting. To explain it, I'll create some sort of a pillar. It will be made of a cylinder and a sphere. Let sphere diameter be a bit smaller and place it up. Now, we have a pillar made of two objects. There are a few options to move them as one. The first one is to select them both and drag. But that's not always easy. The second is placing them to one parent. We use a null object as a parent. Null can be transformed by moving, scaling, and rotating, but it has no appearance at all and doesn't show on the render. To do it, just select objects in the Object Manager and drag them inside. Now, if we move the null, we move these objects simultaneously as a group. Let's copy it. To do so, hold Ctrl, Command on Mac and drag it. Now we have three identical hierarchies. To join them into one group, let's create a null. Now select our objects and drag them under the null. Now we have an even more complex hierarchy. When we move the null, each of these three objects moves. We have to look at some other elements of the interface, like the menu left to the viewport. But to understand what these commands do, we have to look closer at what the polygon object is inside of Cinema 4D. Let's create a sphere and look at its polygon structure. To do so, let's use a display menu above the viewport. Let's choose a mode which contains lines. Now we can see that the sphere consists of polygons, which consists of vertices and edges connecting them. We can't edit them at the moment because every object from this menu is of a class of a generator. It means it's a parametric object created by Cinema 4D, and we can only change some of its properties, like the radius of the sphere, a number of segments, and its topology. You can make its polygons 3 or 4 edges. Let's go back to our menu. This icon to the left will make our sphere an editable polygonal object. It means we lost forever its properties where we could change topology and its radius. Now the sphere is just a collection of vertices and polygons. To edit it, we can use one of the three modes: point mode, edge mode, or polygon mode. For example, in point mode, the same instruments we use to transform objects will help us transform points. The same works for polygons. We can select one or a number of polygons and move them. We can also change topology of these modes, delete vertices and polygons and add them. To do this, you can use hotkeys or mouse right button, which will show you the list of modeling commands. We can choose some instrument and use it. Now we created new polygons. To go back to default mode, we have to press this icon above. Always be aware of the active mode when working in Cinema 4D. One more mode we have to look at is the pivot editing mode. To understand what pivot is, let's select a sphere and go to the coordinates section of the properties. Let's turn it at some angle. As you can see, the sphere is rotating around an imaginary center. It's a pivot. In the pivot editing mode, we can move it to a new position. Let's rotate the sphere again. Now you can see that the rotation and the zooming are applied according to the new object center. Pay attention if this mode is active when working. To sum up our overview, let's create a simple scene. It will be a pencil drawing some abstract line. I'll use a cylinder as a base of the pencil. Let's create a cylinder and turn on a polygon view. We can change cylinder's radius values in the Attribute Manager or with the special controller in the viewport. I'll also bring down the number of the radial segments to 16. Now let's make our object editable with this button. Let's choose Polygon Editing mode, choose a selecting tool and select the top of the pencil. To create a nib, let's use a modeling command. Press the right mouse button and choose Extrude Inner. Let's create a stem inside the pencil. And repeat it for the bottom. Select polygons, extrude them inside, and now we can move the stage as we got down. To move this point down, go to the point mode, select it, and move lower. Now let's go back to the object editing mode. That's how we created a pencil. Now let's color it up. For that, we'll be using materials. To create a new material, just double-click anywhere in the material editor here at the bottom and choose a material color. Blue, for example. To apply a material to an object, you just have to drag it onto the object in the viewport. As we can see, the object just got a new tag, a new property indicating a material applied to it. Now, the whole pencil is blue, and we need some of the polygons to be colored differently. Go back to the polygon mode. There is a selection at the top. To disable it, click in the empty space of the viewport. Let's color the wooden parts. To color non-connected polygons, we can use Shift button. Holding Shift will add the new selection to the active one at the bottom. Let's create a new material and apply it to this selection. Double-click and drag it onto the selected group of polygons. You can also change its color to something more like wood. As we may see, another material tag was added and some tag containing selection with our group of objects to apply the material to. Let's do the same for the stem and the nib. Let's select these with holding down Shift. Create a new material of a dark color and drag to the pencil lead. Another material tag and selection tag were added. Let's go back to the object mode. Move our pencil up and tilt it a bit. We are ready to create a line. To do so, we can use an instrument called Sketch from the menu above. With the mouse middle button, switch to another projection window, top view. Hold the mouse left button and draw a line with this instrument. The spline is ready. Now we just need to create a geometry based on it, because it won't render itself. We can do so with the help of Sweep operator, which builds 3D objects by extruding section along the path. We have the path, now we need a section. Let's create a rectangle and make it a bit smaller. Drag it under the sweep. Right behind it, we have a path we have to place the section on. We have a line we can render. Let's apply a material to it. If it's hard to drag material to the object in the viewport, you can also drag it onto the object in the Object Manager. Let's create a floor. To do so, we'll use a floor object. It's an infinite surface that goes beyond the horizon. The scene is ready. Now let's place a light and a camera. I'll create light with the top menu. I'll use a light, just a simple point source of light. Drag it into the right position and turn on the shadows. The light sources don't cast shadows by default in Cinema 4D. Select the light source to access the properties. Find Shadow and select Area. It allows casting a soft shadow. Let's place a camera. To do so, we have to set up a view we want to have on a render and press on the camera icon. Now we have the camera in the scene. Let's also create a floor material. We have to lighten it up a bit from the camera's side. To do so, select a light source and copy it to the camera side, holding Ctrl or Command on Mac. Release the button and place the source in the right position. To look at the scene from the camera, you just have to click on its icon in the Object Manager. Here's what we've got. Let's make a test render. We can do it in the viewport. We have an icon for it. We also have an editor, a picture viewer, the next icon. We get a nice image, but we've got alias edges. The thing is, the line doesn't have to cast any shadow at all. It will look cleaner that way. We can use a special tag to do so. Let's select an object responsible for the line's geometry and add a compositing tag to it. Compositing tag is used for various things responsible for rendering. It allows changing render properties of an object. Let's remove the cast shadow property. Now the line won't cast shadows. Let's make another render to look if the changes worked. Yep, it looks much cleaner now. To get access to the render's properties, to the image format for example, we can use the third button. We can set the file name we want to save our image or the format of the file. It also has presets for printing and Cinema. So these were the basics you have to know about Cinema 4D interface. Okay, that's it for now. There is your homework assignment in the lesson's description, so good luck with it and see you in the next lesson.